I'm using one I gave about 6 years ago, and it's got pretty pictures, so I liked it. Anyway, this is a little talk I gave when Mike Stevenson was here. I think he was out at Souk that week, and he asked me to take over for him. And this has to do with insects. Insects are small creatures, aren't they? And they give us a lot of pleasure, don't they? Especially when they bite us. But that's not what I'm talking about this morning. You're here this morning for two reasons. Either you want to share what God has done for you in this past week, or you're looking for a friend to talk to, but maybe you need to be encouraged or something. You want to share, you want to connect. But there could be a third reason, and I hope it's not the reason that you're here this morning. Maybe you want to show off some new clothes or a new gadget. I hope that isn't the reason, but whatever the reason, you're here, and that's good. It's good to be here. It doesn't really matter what the reason is, does it? It's good to be in God's house on Sabbath, even for the wrong reason, because God can turn that around. You know, if you connect with Him even for the wrong reason, at some point, your life's going to be changed, isn't it? It doesn't matter. As long as you're there, God can do something with you. He can change you. If you don't show up, there's nothing He can do. So it's good that you're here this morning. Some would say it's maybe a waste of time to go to church. God is all a bunch of nonsense, and there are a lot that believe that, but we know different, don't we? I want to quote from Paul. So remember, this is a different sermon than the bulletin, so don't go by the title and the verse. This verse is from Hebrews 9:28. And Paul says, "So Christ, having been offered once to bear the sins of many, will appear a second time, not to deal with sin, but to save those who are eagerly waiting for Him." So Paul knew what it was about. Paul knew that it wasn't just a bunch of fantasy. I like Titus 2:13, looking for that blessed hope and the glorious appearing of the great God and our Savior Jesus Christ. I like that term, the blessed hope, don't you? Doesn't that kind of resonate with you? The blessed hope. It is an amazing hope, isn't it, to think that Jesus is going to come again at some point, and this world of travail, all this nonsense that's going on now with the virus, we won't have to worry about that kind of stuff. I'm not sure we have to worry about it. It seems like we've overreacted, but we're here. I'm glad you're here. We're sitting far enough apart from each other. I hope we don't spread it. I see there's a family there. There's a family there. Well, you're friends. You may be in trouble. And Valerie's back far enough. So everybody's sort of off. And that's good, isn't it? Because we don't want to catch it. I used to get a lot of colds. I haven't had one for quite a few years. And I attribute it, we always attribute where we are in our experience, whether sick or healthy or whatever, by us what we're doing. But something can come out of left field and get you, and that changes your whole reason to think you're where you are because you were in control. Usually it's something that you didn't even have on your radar. So we're here to connect with God, aren't we? But we also want to connect with one another, and that's important. And are you putting up the slides? I get going, and we're on connecting here. Okay, connecting's the one. I have the switcher. I think it works. I got the light to light up, so I hope it's working. I'll try to use it, and if it doesn't work, you'll have to fill in. So we're here to connect. Yes, there's more, and let me explain about this connecting with one another. Where can a person find a better place to catch the last train out than at church? We want to get on that last train. This world is in a mess, and we want to get out of this place. And if we can't get on that train, and I like to, we hear the phrase, the last train out. That's going to take effect with Jesus' second coming, isn't it? Isn't that a great and glorious train to get on when we go to heaven? It's hard to imagine actually the way the trip will be. Ellen White says something about we're going to spend one Sabbath on a planet somewhere. Does anybody have any idea? Maybe it's near the Orion. Orion is supposed to be the gateway to heaven, isn't it? Am I right? I think Orion, we generally kind of think that. I don't know. Orion's just a galaxy, and the stars in Orion are probably billions of miles apart. It's a pretty big gate. Anyway, so you're here this morning, and I'm glad you made it, regardless of the reason. It probably wasn't easy to get up. You know, there are many reasons to distract us from going to church. But the blessing is here if we'll only get up and take the effort to do it. Now, I'm not putting a finger at those that aren't here this morning. There's good enough reason at this moment to not be here. But I'm thinking of a typical Sabbath morning. But you had to make that decision. So that's a great step. You made a decision and you're here. And that is really cool. That's the way it should be. Remember, being here each Sabbath does not guarantee heaven, though, does it? Doesn't even add one penny to that, but it might change us. And that's the thing. If we're here with other people that have a faith and a belief in a higher being, that's going to rub off on us. And if we open the scripture and look at it to hear it in a group, and we sing corporately, and we study together, we're in a place where God can do something in our lives. It doesn't mean he can't do it when we're at home on our knees, humbly praying to him, but there's power in being together with like believers. Amazing power. This morning, in a minute here, well, let's see. Do you have distraction up? Oh, sorry. I always forget to use this. Okay. But there's plenty. We just went through distraction. There's plenty to distract us. And the fact that you're here means something. It means something in your experience and growth. You're not winning points with anybody, but you're on the journey and you're moving forward. That's the main thing. It's going to maybe change you. So let's look at, let me try it actually. It doesn't work anyway. In fact, the light was working, but I guess the battery was only good enough to make one blink and it went dead. So, okay. God has... what he's done, he's put up a lot of stuff in this world to inspire and uplift us. And we can't always be at church. And when we are, we get fired up, we get charged for the week, but we go home and we have, 6 days. But let's not despair, because during the week there's things, and this is what I'm leading into. What I want to share with you this morning is how God puts stuff in our way, in our path, in front of us, beside us, around us during the week, that if we actually stop and look a moment, it can inspire and uplift us and carry us through the week. So let's look at the rainbow. Isn't that inspiring? You know, I have just about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I got a neat picture of a rainbow on my morning walk. I walk just when the sun comes up. Well, it's sometimes before and sometimes be after. You know what I mean? It depends on the time of the year. Sometimes it never does come up. But I took this picture of a rainbow, and how often you get part of a rainbow like that, right? But how often you get a whole circle like this? And I got this beautiful picture of a rainbow. Now, that was really bright. I don't know if they photoshopped it. That's quite a bright one. But a rainbow is an inspiring thing, isn't it? It always makes me think, of course, what happens after the flood on Mount Ararat, the promise that God gave Noah. And let's go to slide 6. And isn't that inspiring? Isn't there something in a little kid's smile that is uplifting? I love little kids. You know, we did the daycare for 40 plus years. And those little kids, they'd come into our place, and I'm thinking, as a new kid would come in, I'm thinking, what a snotty-nosed looking little brat. How could I even... And you know, it was so interesting. I must say this. It was so interesting. In a matter of weeks, I would want to pick that kid up and hug it. Isn't it amazing how you can change? When you don't know somebody, it's just somebody. But when you start to develop a relationship, there's meaning in that relationship. And all of a sudden, the person that you thought was, whatever it was, a child, an adult, once you connect and know who they are and about them, that's inspiring and that can be uplifting, can't it? Let's go to slide number 7. There's something in a wave. You know, I do my morning walk. And a lot of people walk by. You know, I always say hi to everybody. I don't care what they look like, who they are. I always say hi, and usually I'll raise my hand, or I'll just raise my hand. And it's interesting the characters I meet. Some, they walk by me like this. You wave at them. It's so amazing. And others, they'll wave at you before they even get close. It's the personality. But a wave of a hand is really inspiring. Next one. Isn't that inspiring when your mom puts a beautiful lunch, or your husband or wife? Today we don't do that so much. We go down, we get a meal that's going to kill us at the coffee shop. But there's some good places to eat it. You can have something to drink, and they make some, like in the Toast restaurant. You ever been to Toast? It's now, what do they call it? It's been taken out. The lady in there is really nice. I went in there and I said, my wife wants some soup. Do you have, it was tomato soup, wasn't it? She said, well, I don't have any tomato soup right now. We have different soups different days. She says, here, man. She came over. She says, you want to try this soup? You want to try? I said, no, my wife likes this tomato soup. She says, I'll tell you what. So she said, she wrote out this. You phone me and I'll give you my schedule because some days we have tomato soup. So, I mean, I'm probably going to go back and get tomato soup, whether I like it or not. Actually, I like tomato soup. But there's something in a meal when somebody gives you a nice lunch. Doesn't that say something? That they've taken the time. I mean, it could be a couple sandwiches slammed together. That's an exciting looking sandwich. I got that off the internet. And that is, I'd love to take a bite in that, wouldn't you? I don't know what, is that cheese or is that tuna? Eggs? Probably eggs. That's a good looking, I can hardly, I'm just about ready to run over and take a chunk out of that myself right now. That's a good looking sandwich. Okay, what about is it slide 9? Now when somebody pops a card in the mail and gives you, doesn't that make you feel good? See, these are things that happen all week long. They should inspire and uplift us. What about the next one? Caress. I thought that was a cute little picture. That looks like a painting, doesn't it? But the little child, I don't know if the child is loving the mother or trying to push her away, but the point is, when somebody, the stroke of a hand, a caress, that is uplifting, isn't it? It's inspiring, it's affirming, isn't it? It's very affirming. Today, you've got to be careful. It's got to be your child or something, or your wife. But okay, and then what about, now we all know where that is, don't we? But when I look at that and go down, and in that is so, there's something about that. You stop at the top and you have a look for a minute, and then you walk down the stairs into Butchart Garden. I don't think there's another garden that's equal hardly to Butchart Gardens. Isn't that amazing? See, these are things that we can see during the week. Now, you have to make a special trip and take a few dollars out of your pocket to get there, but that is well worth whatever you pay, isn't it? That is a great thing. And then the last one here, what is this? That's a beetle. But, all beetles aren't insects. But we're going to talk about that. That's why that's up there. But there's something in insects that I love. I worked 30 years with insects, and I hadn't had any training about insects, and my boss says, maybe you better go back to school and take a course in entomology, because you're going to be working with insects. So I did. I went to UVic took the course on insects. But we're going to talk about insects now. Well, we all know that God's, the book of nature, is God's second book, isn't it? Most of us sometime or other have spent some time in nature. How many like to go out camping? Nobody? We used to camp. You guys over there don't camp? I'll talk to you after about that. Camping is incredible. We used to go out camping in the summer. In fact, I don't know, we never got any letters from the pastor telling us we were going to get this fellowship, but we were out a lot when our kids, Mandy would eat so much sand that she was like a weeble. You couldn't tip her over. She had so much sand in her diaper or her bottom. She ate so much of it. She was bottom heavy. I mean, we would go out on the beach, and it was just an incredible experience. We did it week after week. Now, on the next slide. Oh, did you go by my spider? Oh, no, this is a sense of humor. It's the next one. Go back to the bug. I just happened to find that. You're not back to my bug. Oh, there he is. Whoop. No, I meant the one after that. That one. That's a real insect. Do you believe it? That's a real insect. That's a leafhopper. I just happened to find it. I couldn't help but put it in there. It was so... Now, do you think God has a sense of humor? Would you think about making something like that? Well, that's inspiring and uplifting. You can be thankful that God didn't make you like that. I mean, really, that is inspiring to think that God would make something like that. Now, I don't believe in evolution, so I don't think it just happened. I think God had a purpose in doing that. But see, these things are there for us to enjoy. Insects aren't there just to bite. Insects only bite because of what? They only bite because of sin. I mean, this wasn't an original plan. God didn't make these beastly little things that come around and sting and bite. So this morning we're going to look at a few more insects, because I want to show you how insects are there for a purpose and how God can uplift and motivate and inspire us through even the tiniest things. And during the week, you should be looking for things, not just insects, but things that can inspire and uplift you. I mean, it's great to come here during the week, on Sabbath. But during the week, it isn't just like some dark void where we have everything is just, there's stuff out there, there's things to inspire and uplift. Now let's turn to slide number 16. Oh, the fear of some people are afraid. Did we go by the gal there? Okay. Not everybody loves insects, right? That girl looks like she's in stress. I think she is stressed, and it amazed me that a butterfly would stress anybody. Now, let's go to the next slide. That's what my first insects I'm going to talk about. And I missed the spider. The spider I thought I put in there because it was such a neat-looking spider. Not everybody has arachnophobia. Does anybody here have arachnophobia? Some people are really crazy afraid of spiders. Anyway, we're going to talk about the honeybee. I want to read something here. It says here, well, I wrote this down. I want to read it. It says, there's great concern, even as we speak, that the human honey and food supply is in great jeopardy. And there's a mite that's wiping out the honeybees. It's I don't know how they pronounce it. It's Varroa, V-A-R-R-O-A mites. These mites, you want to, now see those little, that's a pupae. You see the, go to the next slide. There, see there's an actual picture of an adult bee. These mites will kill the bee. And they're very bad. They go into a hive and they get on the bee and they suck them and they kill them. But not just the Varroa mite, it's the neonicotinoids. You know, they're an insecticide that they use in the agriculture. They spray, and you know what a systemic is? A systemic is an insecticide that doesn't just go on the surface. The plant takes it up and it goes right through the plant, so that no matter if they eat any of the plant, it's contaminated with the insecticide. And the neonicotinoids are deadly for a lot, and they're really doing a job on the bee. Now, I don't know if you can read that. There's 3 steps. It's a bit hard. That was just a slide I grabbed. But it kind of, it's in the pollen. You see the bee up there in the top round picture? The bee is, they pick up the pollen, they take the pollen back and they feed, and it's contaminated with it, so it kills them. And now, let's see, what slide are you on? What number is that slide? 19. That's number 19. Go to number 20. This is the slide. I wanted to show this because this is so cool. This is about the dance that the bees do, and this is kind of a schematic. You see that jiggy line? Okay, click on that. This is the dance the bee does. Can you get the sound on it? He tells you what's happening. Should be sound on that.
Covered food source is located. Every cycle of this waggle dance roughly describes the shape of the figure 8. Let's rewind and look in more detail. The bee only waggles on a part of its route, the straight run, indicated here by the waved line. The secret lies in the direction of the straight run, or to be more precise, in the angle between the straight run and the perpendicular, which in this case is 90 degrees to the left. This tells the other bees that food is available 90 degrees to the left of the sun. If the angle is 60 degrees to the right, they'll be flying 60 degrees to the right of the sun.
Now, isn't that amazing? Can you imagine a bee does that? That is just overwhelming when I saw that. They go in, they do their wiggly woggly dance, and then the other bees know exactly where the flowers are. That is totally amazing. I mean, these little things, you don't think about it, and it took somebody to sit down and figure that out and to study it to realize that there's a science there, that bees are actually communicating. I mean, we're talking about an insect. Does an insect have a brain? Well, it may be wired in their DNA, but I'm sure it just happened. I just can't buy into that. Well, these are things that are all around us. These things are small. These things are amazing. And it just excites me when I think of this, because God he hasn't left anything to chance. And even in the minute, small details, it's not just a random mess. It's all planned. It's all organized. There's a purpose for everything. Okay, what is that? Oh, I put on it what it was. You don't have to guess. Yes, that's an ant. I put that one up there because I thought it was a cool, big, ugly ant, and I thought it was kind of scary. But well, I don't talk about ants. You know, ants are amazing. They're totally amazing. It's just, but let's, I'm going to read the text here. This is the text we're going to have for this morning. Proverbs 6:6-8. It says, "Go to the ant, you sluggard. Consider her ways and be wise, which have no captain, overseer, or ruler, provides her supplies in the summer and gathers her food in the harvest." And Proverbs 30:25, "The ant are a people not strong, yet they prepare their food in the summer." Solomon was quite taken with ants. Frankly, ant is a marvelous creature. Did you know the total volume of all ants in the world is equal, if not greater, than that of all humans? Does that astound you? I don't know who figured that out, but I guess they know the billions of ants. So maybe we should consider the ant. It says the average life expectancy of an ant is 45 to 60 days, but they do a lot in that short period of time. Ants use their antenna not only for touch, but also for their sense of smell. The head of the ant has a large pair of jaws. Did you know that ants don't swallow their food? Those jaws are made for squeezing, and they squeeze it and they crush all the juice out. They suck the juice in and throw what's left away. They don't swallow, they just swallow juice. I learned that from here. I didn't learn that from entomology that I took at UVic. I have to go back and talk to the prof there. What was the prof's name I told you about Ring, Dr. Ring. Yeah, he retired. I think he probably passed away. A few of us old guys left. Okay. Let's look at the eye. Let's look at the insect eye. See, and you've all heard of a compound eye. Insects there are multiple little eyes. I don't know if that helps them to see better, but that's just a schematic of the eye. Click to the next slide. That's a queen, and you see how she's so full of eggs. And of course, they're kind of like bees. You know, bees have the queen bee, and the queen bee is the one that lays all the eggs, and the rest are all the workers. The job of the queen is to lay the eggs. The workers are sterile, and they look for food after the young and defend the nest from unwanted visitors. Ants are clean and tidy insects. Some worker ants are given the job of taking the rubbish from the nest and putting it outside in a special rubbish dump. Each colony of ants has its own smell. In this way, they can tell an intruder. So ants are amazing. Now, some ants have no stinger, but they squirt. Next slide. See, what's that? See? That is the ants can spray that. We used to, when we worked, we spent quite a bit of time up around Kamloops, and some of the forests out there where we had our plots, we were studying different things. We would go by one area I remember particularly, there was ant nests all over. Every few hundreds of feet there'd be there'd be an ant nest. These ant nests would be quite high, and they'd be maybe 3 or 4 or 5 feet around. And if you would go near them, you would smell this smell. You know what formic acid smells like? It's very strong, very pungent, very toxic, irritating. You wouldn't want to get it on your skin or in your eyes. And that's what those ants are spraying. And if you would put your hand over the thing like this, and then bring it up and smell it, it would smell like that. And that's why ants are named Formicidae. This formic acid is named after the acid that they make. So that's a little interesting thing. There's all kinds of things on ants. I won't get into it. You want me to shut up here pretty quick, so I'll move through it. So next slide. Now it's an ant moving egg. I thought that was kind of cool. You know, at night, worker ants move the eggs and larvae deep into the nest to protect them from the cold. So ants are all organized. They all have their duties. They all do certain things. During the daytime, the workers move the ants and larvae of the colony to the top of the nest so that they can be warmer. If a worker ant has found a good source of food, it leaves a trail of scent so that the other ants can follow. So next slide. These are army ants. And the army ants, they're moving eggs is what they are. And they travel a lot. Army ants move all over, and they're just carrying the eggs. They carry in columns. And these are come from South America. Did you ever see army ants down there in South America? Oh, yeah. Army ants. So you got to be careful, army ants.
They have a bite really strong.
Right. Okay. South America a nest can have as many as 700,000 members in its colony, and more than 300 species ranging from birds to tiny mites depend on them. So they're a great source of food for other creatures. Now we saw these down in Mexico, slide number 30. And this is cool because we were out, I don't know if Sandy was with me or not. You didn't go with me when I walked way back to, they actually cut chunks of leaves and they march in a row and they're each holding their little piece of leaf. Anybody seen that? It is really cool. They're single file and they're just moving along and they all carry their little piece of leaf. And then they use the leaves. The leaves, what it says here, they chew them up. Here it is. They cannot digest leaves because they cannot digest cellulose, but it says they chew them into a pulp and a special fungus grows on them. So that's why they're doing that. Okay, next slide. This is one of the neatest. This is a bombardier beetle, and it's amazing. I got to read this to you. These insects are just cool. And not only are insects amazingly interesting and demonstrate the love God has for even the smallest of creatures, seemingly useful or not, the bombardier beetle completely shoots down the theory of evolution. Even Dawkins has to double speak when he has to explain its amazing peroxide cannon. All he can do was to go on more meaningless rhetoric, it says here. I quoted that out of something. See what it does? It has hydrogen peroxide in one chamber, and it has the hydroquinone, I can't read it, in the other, and they're put together, and they have it's a neutralizer. It's a what do they call it? It prevents the two from reacting. And when he wants to say protect himself, and he's going to blast him, he shoots in another compound, and it neutralizes the thing that keeps him from working. And the minute that goes in, the two chemicals unite with an explosive force. And that's how he blasts. I was going to read this here. This guy here figured this out. I don't know how he figured it out. It says Hermann, a German chemist, studied the bombardier beetle to find out how he accomplishes this impressive chemical feat. He learned that the beetle makes his explosive by mixing together two very dangerous chemicals, and I just mentioned them, hydroquinone and hydrogen peroxide. In addition to these two chemicals, this clever little beetle adds another type of chemical known as an inhibitor. The inhibitor prevents the chemicals from blowing up and enables the beetle to store the chemicals indefinitely. And when he sees an enemy approaching, like a frog, he squirts the stored chemicals into the combustion tubes, and at the precise moment, he adds the chemical, the anti-inhibitor. This knocks out the inhibitor, and a violent explosion occurs right in the face of the poor attacker. And that'll just happen by chance. So that shoots down evolution. The whole thing, there's no way evolution could, it would never happen. Next slide. These are creatures that, what is that? Can anybody tell me? Yeah, we call them splat bugs. We used to have, we looked after, what was her name? Valerie Lambert. She stayed at our house a year. and she'd talk about these splat bugs when they were driving. I thought it was kind of cool, splat bug is any bug that hits your windshield. And that's the only kind of a bug. I put that on there because that's the only kind of a bug a person will tolerate. Some people don't like live bugs. But the problem is that those, you have to scrape them off your windshield, so that's even worse. But next slide. And this is, we're going to close here pretty quick. This is a silk moth. Did you know this? Let's go down to the next slide. And that's some mulberry, and those are some larvae or pupae on and then the next slide. And this, I want to read a little bit here. I got some data off the internet on, that's silk, that's a cocoon, and that's, did you know there's between about from 300 to about 900 meters, or that's 1,000 to 3,000 feet of thread in each one of those cocoons? They're about 1/250th of an inch, each little strand. And it takes about 2,000 to 3,000 cocoons to make 1 pound of silk, raw silk. And I think there's some environmentalists that are probably upset about them abusing the poor silk moth. At least 70 million pounds of raw silk are produced each year. Can you believe it? But this is stuff, see, God made all these things. We just take it for granted. You could walk outside and you see an insect, you think nothing of it. You think but it's exciting when you look at the variety of things in nature. I mean, to think that God actually took the time. Why would he take the time to do that? I mean, he had a reason for it. It wasn't just because he thought well, he maybe thought it was fun, but I think it was for our enjoyment, to inspire us. Anyway, slide number 39, monarch butterflies. We all know about monarch butterflies. I won't go into a lot, but it took them quite a while to figure out where and this map here shows where they come. They're all over the world, but it took them a long time because it takes 2 to 3 years for them to do their thing. And how do the ones that hatch up in Canada know they have to go back? It's not like the same one goes up and back. They work their way along, and the ones up there, when they're up there, know that they go down to Mexico or to California. So it's an amazing thing, and it took them years and years to figure out where these moths flew to, that the fact that they even flew. See, God does some amazing and absolutely marvelous things. And of course, one of the most well-known and recognized moths is this moth. It's amazing. So now isn't that a lot of moths? The ground is, and then there's and the next one has a branch with a few in it. I thought that was kind of cool. They are found in North America, New Zealand, Australia, the Canary Islands, Madeira, Azores, Western Europe, and the United Kingdom. So they're quite common. Okay, the last one, and then we're through. Let's go to the slide number 42. And this is a 17-year cicada. Cicadas are amazing. I want to close with cicadas, just another minute or so. God has made, this is another marvelous thing that God has made. The story of I want to close with this. The story of the 13 and 17-year cicada, it only emerges every 13 to one, their cycle, and 13 and 17 years from the ground for about 6 weeks to mate, lay their eggs, and die. There are 3 species of the 17-year and 4 species of the 13-year cicada, and only the males make the sound that they are famous for. And it will be, now this is going to be exciting because in 2015, they'll come out. The 2 will come out, and it'll be crazy when they do. There'll be a riot of them. There can be up to 1.5 million of the 17-year per acre, and there are literally billions of them. And they're just amazing. Keep clicking through these. Just go through these. They're going up a tree to mate. And there's, well, you can stop there. Those they go up the tree and they actually cut slits in the bark and they lay the eggs. See, they're in the ground that period of 13 or 17. Now, there are other ones that aren't in this cycle. This is just the 13 and 17-year ones. And slide 46. Lemon, slide 47. That's a cicada stir fry. And people eat these things. 48 is a taco. You can have tacos. 49 is pasta. And this is cicada bob. And dogs love them. They gorge on them. Wild turkeys grow fat on. Fish love them, and people eat them. It says here you can barbecue it, boil it, broil it, bake it, saute it. There are cicada bobs, cicada creole, cicada gumbo, pan-fried, deep-fried, stir-fried. There's pineapple cicada, lemon cicada, coconut cicada, pepper cicada, cicada soup, cicada stew, cicada salad, cicada and potato, cicada burger, cicada sandwich. That's about it. So cicadas are big, but see, God made all these things, and we just take it for granted. We don't even give it a thought. But the week is full of stuff. The week can inspire us. The week can carry us through. And besides that, we have an opportunity to witness. We can share our love of God and what He's done for us. We don't have to feel blue during the week waiting for another Sabbath. God cares for us, and He's put this stuff. This is little stuff that sometimes can irritate us, sometimes can annoy us, but it's there. If we look at it, there's something in it that can inspire and uplift us. God's amazing love. So we have to look for these bits of pieces of evidence that God has left here for us to see. And we put them in your basket of things to rejoice in and share them with your family and as a tool to witness for Jesus. So have a good week. Remember, there's stuff out there to keep you excited and happy and charged up all week long. And so when you come to Sabbath school, it's just a bonus day. Thank you very much.